as I've logged in as, I believe, someone who is going to be on the call today. And her name is Sandra. And I'm logged into the subrecipient portal. Beth, do you have a question?
No, I'm sorry. That was inadvertent.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. All right. So I am logged into the subrecipient portal. The folks there over at DEO, if you do not have access to the subrecipient portal, they would work with you to sign a agreement, kind of user agreement, and they would have your user created. You would get access to the portal like you see here. Something to keep in mind is we have a lot of different programs, a lot of different people that are working with different programs like CDBG and CSBG and BESS and LIHEAP and LIWAP. And some people's views are slightly different. But the biggest thing to understand here is that the functionality works the same for everybody. All right. I'm logged in, and the very first thing I want to kind of point out here is the little home button here. This will always, wherever you are within the portal, you can always click home and return to this view. All right. And you'll see that there are some tabs up here at the top. And then there's also some tabs here in the middle. Primarily, we're going to be working here in the middle and a little bit here at the contract number. The first tab is the subrecipient. That is who I represent. I am logged in as Sandra, and I represent the city of Milton. If I click on this green link here, City of Milton, it's going to open up the details about the City of Milton and them as a subrecipient. You'll see the billing address, some of the subrecipient information, name, phone number, fax number, FAIN, DUNS, UEI, and so on. These fields are not editable for you or me as a portal user, okay? There are two fields here at the bottom that are editable, and there's an important notation for this. The reason that these two are editable is because if I look at the top here, there is what's called a grant summary report. If I want to run this report, I would come in and edit these two fields to select the reporting date from and the reporting date to. All right, so to edit, I can either click the edit button up here, and it'll open the record up so that I can come down here and go, nope, I want to change this to February 2nd. I want to change this one to March 8th. And then I would save. Or you can also click right next to this little pencil icon, and it'll just open the field right there on the page for you. I can change the date to the 2nd or change this one to the 8th and save. The grant summary report runs a system called Conga, and it will generate a report for you that will download onto your local PC. All right. Sometimes it runs a little bit slow. Sometimes it's really fast. It all just depends. All right. But you'll see it kind of go through its thing, and I'll have a document that I can open up here, downloads again to my local PC. And this is an Excel document with your grant summary report. Okay. Any questions on that? I'll pause for a moment. Here's what it looks like. Fabulous. Okay. All right. To get back, I can just close that window. And now I'm still here at the subrecipient record. Again, click home. Will take me back to the beginning. Okay. Primarily, we're going to be working with NFAs. So you'll see here in the middle, we have in progress NFA tab, pending closeout NFA tab, closed NFAs. And then these two here are the financial activity types that have been created and worked through. So we'll talk about these as well. Some programs, again, this is where the difference will come. Some programs will have a reimbursement tab. Some programs will have different types of financial activity based on the program, right? So let's start with our in-progress NFAs. For this particular subrecipient, they only have one in-progress NFA. In progress, that means basically it is open and ready for work to be done on it, all right? So here we're looking at community development project. if I click on that green link, it's going to open up a record that shows me all the details about this particular NFA, right? At the top, we've got the subrecipient, the status, the grant that it's related to, the start date. And if I hover over that grant, it's also going to show me the program that goes along with it. So the program year is 2022. The program itself is community development projects. We have our grant name and that the grant is active. Again, I can hover and see things. Start date and end date. Now, the very first tab within this record are details of the NFA. We'll talk about cost categories here in just a moment. But as I kind of scroll down here, you'll notice some details, some information. There's my contract number that is attached to this NFA. Again, hovering gives me a little bit more information. But if I want to really dive into that contract number, I can click on that green link and it'll open up the record and I'll see more. But we'll come back to that in a few minutes. Our status, our start date. Then we get into the money. How much has been awarded for this particular NFA? What's been released? What is available to draw? And then we have total drawn and total expended. This particular one that I'm working with today has no activity on it. It has my total awarded amount and my released amount, and I've got all that whole amount to draw from. So there's been no activity on it. I chose this one because it had no activity on it. Our fiscal month and end are here. We see the program name. Again, these fields are not editable for you because these records are set up by the folks at DEO, right? And most of these fields then will calculate based on when your financial activities are submitted, when they're paid, and that sort of thing. So a lot of these are formula fields that depend on actions, okay? That kind of gives you an overview of the details. Then on the bottom here, we call these related lists. But what they are a really great way, easy way for you to see the things that you're doing as you're doing them. So when I create a financial activity, after I've created it and submitted it, it will show up right here in this little related list that's attached to my NFA. Same thing with your quarterly reporting or accomplishment reportings, if there's damage locations involved, which are basically our CDBG-DR folks. Okay, again, if it may not be applicable to your program, if it's not, then you don't have to really worry about it. Files, again, as I kind of said earlier, I can't really tell you what you have to upload, but this is how you would do it. File uploads are pretty simple. On any record, our financial activities, anything, there will always be a files related list. And all you do is click upload. It'll open up your local computer. You search your computer for what you're looking for. I have a little test document that I can add. Click open. It'll go through the process of uploading it, and then you click done, and now it's there. You can see it, as well as the internal people over at DEO will be able to see that as well. Okay. So that's our details page. Cost categories are where we're going to, or how our money is kind of broken apart in our deliverables, that sort of thing. Again, these are created and put into a package for you by the folks at DEO. You know, they work through and get these records ready, and then once it's in progress, you know that everything's set and ready to go. All right, so on this particular NFA, we have one deliverable, just called deliverable 1, and our amount for that is set at $500,000. And right now, my remaining on that category is still $500,000, because as I said a little bit earlier, this hasn't had any action on it yet, right? Okay, so there's our kind of basic NFA layout and high-level introduction to that, right? So let's go ahead and create a financial activity on this NFA. It's pretty simple. There's a button up here called New Financial Activity. I click this button and it's going to present me with my options. These are the kinds of financial activities that I can create. I can do a reimbursement, I can do an advance, an expenditure report, or a program income type of financial activity. Again, based on the program that you work with, might be different. There may only be expenditures or there may only be reimbursements. It all depends on what you are specifically working with, right? But what is available will show up here. Today, I'm going to do a reimbursement. So I select my record type and I click Next. Enter in my reporting time period, start and end for this financial activity. Go back to February 1st through February 28th, right? And it even tells you currently this NFA has $500,000 funds available to draw from. Click Next. And as it does its little thing in the background, what's happening is it's creating a record, a financial activity record with the type of reimbursement. Now, you'll see my screen change. And now all of a sudden at the top, this is the record that I am on. I am now on that new financial activity record that I just created using that button, right? It looks very similar to the NFA, but you can always tell what the record is by looking at the top and seeing that name of that record. Underneath it, it tells me that it's a reimbursement. It's attached to the NFA that I just clicked that button from. My reporting period, start and end are there. Those are the dates that I entered. And we have some details. Again, we bring a lot of details down from the NFA. For example, the grant number, all right, that comes down. The contract number copies down from the NFA, right? What we're going to do here is we notice that our status is in new. Okay, so I've created the record, but I haven't done anything with it yet. I haven't put any money in. I haven't asked for anything. I've just created kind of that box that I'm going to fill out and then send it off. All right. Requested date is blank still. The approval date is blank. Funds requested is 0 because, again, I haven't done anything with it yet. All right. So here's where that cost category tab, you see that again, comes into play. That cost category deliverable 1 that we saw on the NFA comes down to the financial activity so that we can say, okay, well, of that $500,000, I want to request 1,000 of it. To do that, I'm just going into that funds requested box, putting in my amount, clicking out of it, and now you'll notice that I have a little save button down here. There's also a little kind of signature box that I have to certify that to my knowledge and belief that this is true and accurate. So I've got my $1,000 there. I'm going to check mark that little box and then I'm going to save it. Again, there is a files upload right under at the bottom of the page, again, right there. So if there's documentation that I need to include for this financial activity, I would do the same thing that I did on the last one. Just come in here and upload. It'll go through and it's process of uploading it. When it's done, I click done. And now that file is attached to my financial activity. Right? It shows me here, there's the cost category that that was created with it, which is that cost category that we filled out up here. But I'm not done just quite yet. Once I'm ready, everything's filled out, I've got my documentation, I'm happy with it, then I have to click submit for approval. And what that's going to do is going to send it off to the folks at DEO to do their part, go through, check documentation, make sure everything's good, and get it prepped for Claire. Can you remove them? If you click view all, you can. That's the other thing about related lists. If you have, say, for example, if I were here and there were 100 files attached, okay, you can always click that view all and it'll open up to give you a full view. All right, so if there was a bunch of them here, you could come in and remove it. Okay, does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Does each financial activity generally represent one individual invoice or a group of invoices under the same cost category? You know, that would be a question for DEO. You cannot edit the cost categories. Cost categories are set up by the folks at DEO. File size limit, I think it's
25.
25. I was going to say 20.
25 megabytes.
25 megabytes. Okay. If you enter an incorrect date, let me go back home and get back to where we are. So you'll notice that I clicked around a little bit, but I can always go home, go back to my NFA, and you'll see as I scroll down, there's that financial activity that I created. All right. So I can get back to it. I can always get back to it. All right. So we'll open it back up. Okay. Your reporting period start and end dates are not editable at this point. So if you're entering the wrong dates, you'd need to reach out to the folks at DEO to either update it or they can reject it and have you fix it, because at this point, it's not editable.
The first person in the approval process likely will reject it, and you'll get it back to make edits. It'll open up if they reject it.
Cost category can be updated. Can you change the amount? If you have submitted something, you cannot edit it. Once you've submitted, you cannot edit. The folks at DEO would need to reject it, send it back to you. When it's rejected, then it opens it up for you to edit and resubmit. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this one. So you'll notice my requested date has updated. My status has updated to submitted. Okay. And what I wanted to do was to go ahead and reject it. So give me 1 second. Okay. So what does it look like when it's rejected? I'll come back to my home, or refresh my page. But again, always starting at that home tab, looking into my in progress. And if I come down here to my financial activity, now we'll notice that my status is rejected. So they have sent it back to me for either updates or to create a new one or something along those lines. Okay. All right. So now I can come in here to my cost category And now I can change this. Let's change this to 1,500. Save it. And I can resubmit, right? Okay. As we move along through our tabs here, our next tab is the pending closeouts. So as your NFAs get worked and the money is used up and things like that, DEO will eventually set your NFA to pending closeout. When it's set to pending closeout, it moves into this list view. Obviously here, the status was in progress. Here, our status is going to be pending closeout. When they're here in this list, in this tab, they'll have a status of closed. So currently, City of Milton has 3 NFAs that are pending closeout. Again, and the folks over at DEO will be the ones to initiate and set this up as pending closeout. At that point, when they're in that pending closeout status, is when you as the portal user would come in and kind of wrap it up, do a couple of things. So I'm going to go into this one, all right? Again, looks very similar to the NFA that we looked at before that was in progress. Really, the biggest thing that's different here is we've got this pending closeout status. When we look at our financial information, my amount awarded, my amount released are equal, but then I have nothing in my available to draw. Everything's been spent. The total amount is in my drawn field, and the total amount is also in my expended. All money is accounted for in this scenario. So at this point, we're ready for this NFA to be closed out. So all I need to do is come up, and now I see this button called Closeout NFA. Click on that Closeout NFA, and it's going to go through potentially a series of little prompts for you, depending on if you have money left over that you haven't used or if there's money that's owed to DEO. This one is pretty clean and clear. It gives you kind of that overall synopsis of what's going on with the NFA. We notice that the subrecipient's name, we've got our NFA ID, the start date and the end date of the NFA, what's been drawn, what's been expended, what's cash on hand, and then a little attestation here at the bottom. In order to close out the NFA, you must check the box below to certify that you're agreeing to the current state of your NFA. I certify to the best of my knowledge, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We check mark that box, and because everything's clean on this one, that's all we got to do. Okay, that's it. That's all that takes for that. All right. I'll pause there. Any questions? Anybody want to take themselves off mute? I'm going to go through a different scenario where there is money left over here in just a moment. Does the subrecipient receive an email notification when their financial activity has been rejected? Yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to switch here real quick to show you an example of an NFA that has money left over. And just so you're all aware, I'm working in a testing environment. I'm not in production. I'm not making changes to any kind of live data here. I'm specifically working in a testing environment so that I can give you good examples and not do it in a live kind of scenario. Okay. All right. So here I'm going to grab a pending NFA that actually has some water or some money left over. All right. So we'll notice here that the awarded and the released are the same, but we still have money left over to draw. And this is one that is in pending closeout. So we're going to go ahead and click that closeout NFA. And this will kind of show you what it would look like if you had this scenario. So of course we have our data of, the NFA ID, our start end dates, our funds drawn, expended, cash on hand, and what was awarded, and some adjustments. So this is telling me that the NFA has a positive cash on hand. How would I like to resolve this balance? And it's asking me that either we're going to do a cash adjustment and edit the expenditure or do a refund. So here I'm going to do a cash adjustment, click next, and then it's going to ask me, okay, well, which other NFAs would you like to add the cash adjustment to? And it gives me a list of the other NFAs that are attached to my subrecipient. I can only select up to 3. I would select the 3 that I want and click next. Very intuitive. It goes through step by step, and there are things that are happening in the background, and you see this unhandled fault because I didn't set it up correctly, but everything kind of flows for you as it should. Okay. Does that make sense? Questions on that? If you read the screens, it pretty much will guide you on what to do next. All right, I'm going to go back to Sandra. I really wanted just to show you that one because it had some stuff left over. Okay. Closed NFAs. That's a list of our closed NFAs. Once they're done, everything is set and finished up, they just move over to this column, this tab. Okay. Reimbursements. This is a tab that shows me reimbursements that have been approved and or paid in the past. So it gives me a nice list of any of those NFAs. I can find them here. Of course, you can always find them on your NFA itself in that list, that box list view at the bottom, that related list that we talked about. Okay. All right, I'm going to head back home here. The other thing I was asked to cover today was the contract number and the executive compensation. So we're going to talk about that next. The executive compensation entry, data entry, happens on the contract number. And you'll notice up here, we have a tab called contract number. We also saw the contract number on the NFA. So if I go back to the NFA record itself, there was that green contract number. I can get it to it from here, or I can get to it from the tab at the top. Me personally, I prefer the tab at the top. That's just me. It's all about what you're comfortable with. Something to understand is, what you see is based on what we call list views. And right now, this list view is on recently viewed. I've only looked at one of the contract numbers, but if I change this by clicking that down arrow, I can go to my contract numbers and it's going to give me all of them. Okay. So a lot of times people don't understand. They go, wait a minute, I have 20 contract numbers. I don't understand why I only see one, because you've only looked at one, right? So if you change this to then you'll see them all. Okay. So I'm going to open up this top contract number and talk about the executive compensation and how we enter that in. So there are some, again, this comes from DEO, what is required and what is not as far as the executive compensation goes and who has to create the executive compensation and who doesn't. But it's a very simple, intuitive way to go through this. The tab on the contract number defaults to the executive compensation table. And this is where we're going to enter in our data. Basically, we've set this up so that one person can certify that they're entering in all 5 people for their executive compensation data. So I would put my name in here, my title, will call me the boss today, okay? And then I'm going to click save. So that's the first thing I do, is to certify that I am the one that is entering in this data. Now what it's going to do is allow me to start entering in each individual person for the executive compensation. These little eye bubbles here are important, because if you're not sure what to do or you don't know what this is for, these are little information bubbles. This tells you if reporting for fiscal year outside of the current year, we're going to mark this as true, and we're going to enter in a fiscal reporting year end. Why is that? Well, because the fiscal years don't necessarily coincide with the current year, it automatically sets to the current year. So if it's outside of that time period, you're going to want to override the current year. And you would just click this and put in, say, 2022. All right, because today is 2023, but maybe I'm reporting for the last fiscal year, right? Again, it tells you kind of what to do. So we'll enter in first and last name of our first executive and his title. Something to note here, required fields are denoted by a little red asterisk. So if I just do that and come down here and click save, it's going to say, no. It's going to give me a big red error that says, no, you can't do that, because before I can save, I have to go through all of these required fields. If the title isn't there, there's an if other, please enter. And then we can enter in a salary, bonuses. If it's a 0, type in a 0. There are some that are descriptions. Type in none or NA. Because they are required and you have to put something in there, you can type in zeros or none, NA. Okay, so, and then we have a comments down here. There's some definitions down here for you: executive leadership, cash equivalents, other payouts, so on and so forth. Once I'm done with Jim Brown, I click save. And what that's going to do is it's going to put him down here in my table. This is my overall table. Now it gives me a new blank one to put in the next person. And for sake of time, I'm going to go through and put zeros for everything. Okay. And save. Okay. Now I've got 2. Let's say we've got our 2 in here, and that's all we're going to do, all we need to do. So now we see there's Jim Brown, there's Bob Smith. I can keep going. Enter in 5, enter in 10, whatever it is I need to do. Once I'm finished, there's a submit button here down here. We just click submit. Okay. And we'll get our success over here that lets us know. Okay. I'm going to refresh my page. And you'll see again at the bottom of that page, now we created those 2 records. This is one record for Jim, one record for Bob down here at the bottom. Okay. And you can always click into it, take a look at it, and these are not editable. If you reach out to DEO because you made a mistake, they'll be able to unlock it for you. Okay. I'll pause there. Any questions? So we've talked about our NFAs. We've talked about the executive compensation with contract number. The other one I wanted to point out, and BWR is I believe, Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's specific to BESS, the BESS program. BWR is for their household entry. Again, it may or may not be applicable to you, but this is a way for the BESS folks to enter in their BWR household data. There's a lot of required fields there, right? I wanted to go to status reporting is really where I wanted to head next. And you'll see City of Milton has done quite a few status reports in the last 5-6 years, all right? Here, my list view is on my status reports. So these are all the ones that I have done in the past or someone with the City of Milton has done in the past. To do a new status report, we just click new up here in the corner. And we're going to select our record type. We have Section 3 reports, fair housing, minority business enterprise, or quarterly status reports, the QSR. Again, your grant managers and the people at DEO will be able to tell you specifically which one you need if you're unsure. All right, we'll go with the QSR and click next. And again, then it just opens up these fields that we need to complete. Our subrecipient is ourselves, of course, the City of Milton. I'm going to add the contract number that this applies to. I can search for my NFA and attach it to a specific NFA for the City of Milton. We have our type of status report that you can attach. Let's go with that one. Period beginning and period ending. Date submitted and status will update itself. So I'm going to save that. What's going to happen is it's going to create the record, bring the record to me so that I can add any documentation that I need to. If I go to that related tab, we'll see that files. Again, there it is again, that files related list where we can upload the appropriate documentation that we need. Once I'm happy with it, I'll submit it for approval. Again, it goes to the DEO side. They go through their process. If it's rejected, you'll know it's been rejected or approved. But again, we can always see that from that NFA. I chose NFA. Let me go back here. I may have chosen the wrong one when I picked it, but if I chose the right one and it was this one, again, it would show down here in our quarterly accomplishment reporting down here, okay, or QSR. I didn't choose the right one. I put it on a different one. Okay. Any questions? Anybody want to take themselves off mute and ask questions? Yes, ma'am.
What does damaged location mean?
Damage location is for the DR program group.
Oh,
the disaster recovery.
There was accomplishments and quarterly accomplishments, like two different fields. What's the difference? Just time frame?
Different programs.
Okay. One more question. The status report for this NFA, is that, do you know if that's the same quarterly report that the DEO wants generally, or you just,
I don't know the answer to that. You would have to ask them.
Thanks.
Yeah. Like there's 4 different types that are available. And yeah, they would be able to tell you which one it is. And because if you see on this one, some of them, it could be dependent on the program. If it's a certain NFA, they're going to do fair housing. But if it's a different NFA, it's going to be the MBE. Loan programs, I believe, are the minority business enterprises. But this particular subrecipient has multiple programs. They've got You know, some CDBG, they have some loan programs. So it's, you know, it's all dependent upon that NFA and the program. Anybody else? Now's your time. Now's your time. Josh, did I miss anything?
I do not think so. Pretty thorough.
Oh, I do want to talk about reports. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yes, so you went over when we submit the amount that we're requesting. Is the item that we're uploading is the invoice and proof that we've made the payment?
Again, that's a DEO question. What kind of documentation they want? Unfortunately I don't know the answer to that. That's something that you would have to ask the grant manager or program manager over there.
I thought that, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. It's
okay.
Thank you.
That's okay. That's quite all right. I do want to talk about reports. I missed this one. And this is, let me say this, that reporting, ad hoc reporting as a portal user is not really what this is set up for. Basically, the folks at DEO can create reports and share them with you, and then you could take that report and make it your own. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. So next to our little home icon, we have a reports tab. And when I click on that reports tab, something to note, on the left-hand side here, it always defaults to recent. So obviously nothing here yet because I haven't looked at any reports. But I'm going to come down here to the shared with me folder. When I go to shared with me, there is a folder called CDBG reports that DEO has shared with me. So I can come into this folder, and within that folder are a bunch of reports that, again, DEO has created and shared in this folder for me and all of the other CDBG portal users. So something you want to take note of and kind of notice here is you'll see a lot of them say copy of in front of it. Copy of, because that's the intent, is for DEO to create a report that they share with everyone, and then you can make a copy of it and modify it to fit your needs. So for example, if I come down to, let's do CDBG closed. Let me find a good one here. Let's do open grants. Okay. So this is a report that's been shared with me. To make a copy of it and then make it my own, what I would do is come up here and click Save As, and I could name it, rename it as, say, CDBG Open Grants Milton. This isn't really a great example for the report itself, but it shows you this Save As functionality, right? And then I just save it. And now that report, I'm not going to edit the report that everybody has access to. I'm going to edit the report that I created for myself. And to do that, we come into edit, and to kind of understand Salesforce reporting, there's two parts to it. The first part is the outline, which shows you the columns within the report. All right. Think of an Excel spreadsheet. This will give me the columns and the data that I want. The second part of it is the filters. Again, think of an Excel spreadsheet. When you want to only see certain things, you set filters. So we could come into the filters part and say, no, I want contracts that start with the letter P, or I want the contracts that start with the letter H, or now instead of looking at the status equals in progress, I only want to look at the ones that are in the status pending closeout. So this is where you could take a report and modify it to the way you want it, just for you. Again, very important to not just go into a report that's out there and just start editing it, because it's going to edit it for everybody. Make a copy for you. And that's why you see a lot of different names on these reports here. If I go back to shared with me, when you see these created by, you'll see a lot of different names. So like this one, this person created a copy, and they may or not have changed the columns. They may or may not have changed the filters, but they wanted to create their own copy so that they could work with it. Okay. Any questions on that? No? Okay, I'll ask Josh one more time. Anything that I missed or that I should go through? Okay, not everything.
I think you got it all.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, I will then allow you guys, if there's no more questions for us, I'll give you guys 10 minutes back of your day. And I will provide the recording to the folks over there at DEO, and they can disperse to you guys as needed. Okay. All right. I thank you guys for your time and hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.